morning. Good morning. We are coming to you live from Paradise, Pride in Paradise in Mombasa, where the Zamara Pension Convention 2025 is currently underway. It brings to you our leaders, visionary leaders from East Africa in the space of financial planning and retirement. And today, under the theme Disrupting for Impact, Transform, Integrate and Sustain, the three-day conference, today's convention focuses on innovation, transformation and sustainable growth in the pension space. Let me take you right into it.
It's a moment to move beyond business as usual, to rethink how we work and to deliver great value to our members and the broader financial services sector. Our theme this year, Disrupting for Impact, Transform, Integrate and Sustain, captures the spirit of what brings us all together. It's a call to move from discussion to disruption, from ideas to integration, and from systems to sustainability. This is both a call to action and a collective promise that we will disrupt, not for disruption's sake, but for meaningful and lasting impact in the pension and financial services sector in this country. For over 30 years now, Zamara has been part of Kenya's pension evolution, from the actuarial foundations of the 1990s to today's data-driven, technology-enabled ecosystems. We have made significant progress. Across sub-Saharan Africa, it's estimated that about 17% of the workforce participates in any formal retirement arrangement or pension scheme arrangement. However, nearly 80% of our people work in the informal sector with very little or no retirement protection. This is not merely a policy gap, but it's a human dignity gap. Here at home in Kenya, it's estimated that about 26% of the workforce is saving within the formal pension system. That is not a statistic that we can be proud of after having practiced pensions for so many years. We must disrupt and reimagine how we can bring retirement security to millions of Kenyans that we have left behind. At Zamara, we are ready to play our part. We have developed innovative products and IT systems designed to support great and exponential growth in coverage, particularly within the informal sector. Our mission is to ensure that the story of pensions in Kenya begins to tell a different and better story, one of inclusion, dignity, and shared prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to recognize the encouraging and transformative changes that are already taking place, and we are very pleased to have our regulator here with us today. To give one example, the National Social Security Fund has undertaken significant and major reform, from improvements of its structure, basically the way the regulatory environment of NSSF is, and those of you can remember that it took about 10 years from I think 2013 to 2023 for the new NSSF Act to be implemented. There have been very critical legislative amendments that have taken place in this particular period. Now, over the last 3 years, there's been a shift from the old 400 shillings per member per month to 6% contribution by both employee and employer, subject to a cap. These are significantly transformed NSSF. And for some of you who may not know, I was actually chairman of NSSF when we changed the contribution rate from 80 shillings to 400 shillings. The 80 shillings had been in place for more than 27 years. And during my time when I was chairman of NSSF, we pushed quite hard to change it to 400 bob. But now this has changed to 6% of earnings for each of the employer and employee. Obviously, there are difficulties around how that is currently being administered, but those are short-term challenges which I believe we'll be able to overcome. To give you another statistic just around the National Social Security Fund, in just 3 years, NSSF, which had funds of just under 300 billion, as at last month, the size of the NSSF fund was about 650 billion. This is a very remarkable achievement by any measure. Yet, we believe that more must be done to expand membership, to deepen penetration of pension in this country, and to continue to strengthen governance as the fund continues to grow. We believe that in another 3 or so years, NSSF, if it goes the way it's going, may easily cross the 1 trillion mark. And you know what happens in this country when there's a lot of money in a particular fund. Everybody's fingers are just itching to try to come in. We hope this will not happen going forward. Sustainable progress will depend on a delicate balance between the NSSF, basically looking at the various tiers, occupational schemes where most of us belong to, umbrella schemes where a large number of employers who do not want to form their own schemes belong, and individual personal pension plans, all working together to extend coverage to both formal and informal sectors. In recent months, the government has taken very bold and unprecedented steps to improve the tax regime for the retirement benefit sector, and thanks very much RBA for this particular one, for helping us. These reforms, if fully implemented, can unlock further growth and enhance the sustainability of pensions and social security ecosystem in this country. It's universally accepted that strong and vibrant pensions and social security systems underpin very robust economic growth. Kenya cannot be an exception. Our nation's long-term prosperity will mirror the strength and inclusivity of our retirement ecosystem. More importantly, this ensures that Kenyans retire in dignity and enjoy the comfort of their sunset years. There's nothing as bad as seeing someone work for 20, 30 years, and when they retire to very, very bad state, basically retire to poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today because we believe pensions are not mere statutory obligations. They are tools for social transformation, intergenerational justice, and long-term security. I believe that regulation should be strengthened a little bit more to make sure that it forces us all to basically save for our retirement and make sure that we live dignified lives when we retire. In the next 3 days, we will have an opportunity to reflect deeply and to act decisively on how we can disrupt with purpose in policy making, investment and how we diversify that, and innovation in our industry. Day one, which is today, we will explore legislative and policy shifts shaping the future of retirement schemes. Guided by thought leaders such as our chief guest, Honorable Kimani Kuria, who is a chartered accountant and also a member of parliament. He'll be joining us in a very short while. The chief executive of RBA, Mr. Charles Machira, and other distinguished colleagues. We will examine how governance, advocacy, and forward thinking can create a resilient and sustainable pensions landscape. On day two, which is tomorrow, we will turn to digital innovation, how AI and digital tools are redefining the retirement experience. From estate planning to AI-driven pension arrangements, we will ask, how can we make technology serve better, not the other way around? And for those of you who are as old as I am, believe you me, technology will actually change the world going forward. What ChatGPT and the many other AI programs are doing is completely transformative. We will also look on day three, look ahead to the future of responsible investing, focusing on environmental, social, and governance principles, basically ESG, and the role of asset diversification in building not just wealth, but long-term societal values. Ladies and gentlemen, disruption without integration is merely noise. To create real impact, we must bridge policy with technology, innovation with governance, and systems with people. We must ask ourselves, how do we design pension systems that reflect Africa's youthful demographics while preparing for aging populations? How do we integrate healthcare, savings, and protection into a seamless cycle that will protect our people in the long run? How can we engage Gen Z and millennials not as passive participants but as active architects of the pension system of tomorrow? Gen Zs and millennials are basically the biggest group of population in our country and also in Africa. However, those of us who are basically ahead of them, I believe we are not spending sufficient time to educate these people and make sure that they basically take over tomorrow. A good example is we had issues with Gen Zs last year in this particular country. A large number of them came out and a large number of them are very vocal. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is coming out to register people. If you look at the numbers, completely decimal. Now, unfortunately, unless we assist these people to go through that, what will happen is that it will be a perpetual cycle of noise after noise after noise. So we have a very big responsibility in engaging with our Gen Zs and educating them so that they are not passive participants, but they are very active architects. Speak to these people around retirement and pensions. They'll either look away or go away because for them retirement is very far off. But it's our duty to try and basically educate them. At Zamara, we firmly believe that collaboration is the ultimate catalyst for change. Let us share insights, challenge assumptions, and build partnerships that will allow us to think bigger, act faster, and deliver much better. Transformation thrives not only on ideas, but also on relationships, on purpose, and shared energy. Amidst the dialogue and discovery, we have created moments to reflect, connect, and celebrate together over the next 3 days. To every delegate that is here, every sponsor, every partner, every speaker, and every change maker, thank you for being part of this journey. Your voice, your vision, and your commitment are what makes this convention truly meaningful. It is a privilege to serve you all, and we look forward to strengthening our partnership in the years ahead. Allow me now to acknowledge the Zamara team that is present at this conference. Zamara colleagues, please stand up so that we can recognize you, or just wave your hand up. To all of you, thank you very much. Thank you for the efforts. You can sit down. As we embark on this convention, let us remember we disrupt with purpose, we transform with courage, and we integrate with vision, and we sustain with integrity. Let this convention be a defining moment for our history, for our country, and for the future of retirement across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 Zamara Pension Conference. Thank you very much. I think we'll now go to basically the next speaker. The Honorable Kimani Kuria hasn't come. I think we'll invite the CEO of RBA to basically come and give us a speech. A round of applause for him. I would like, as he comes up, I would like to make a few comments, a few remarks, which I basically skipped, which we should have done at the beginning. Our CEO, Mr. Sandeep Raichura, who many of you know, all of you basically know, unfortunately lost his mother, and she was buried on Sunday. And as per the Hindu tradition, he can't come out until Friday this week, when he'll basically be coming out. Also, we lost a number of trustees over the last short period, over the last 1 month or so. One particular one from Telposta, a very good friend of ours who has been with us for a long time. And also we lost Baba not too far back. I would like us, although in reverse, to basically just have a moment of silence, 1 minute of silence in honor of all those people. Thank you. Mr. Machira, over to you. I think they'll do an intro for Machira, and then he basically starts. Thank you.
Joining us next is Mr. Charles Machira. Charles Machira is the CEO of the Retirement Benefits Authority, appointed to the position in December 2022, after serving as acting CEO from March 2022. Prior to this, he held the position of Chief Manager of Supervision for 11 years, where he played a central role in strengthening regulatory oversight and governance within Kenya's pension sector. With over 20 years of experience spanning insurance and pensions, Charles has been instrumental in shaping policies and frameworks that enhance the sustainability and transparency of retirement benefit schemes. He previously served as Managing Trustee of the Policyholders Compensation Fund, representing the RBA. He holds a bachelor's degree in mathematics and statistics from Moy University and a master's degree in social protection finance.
Thank you very much for the intro. Good morning, all. Good morning once again. I am not the chief guest, as James has indicated, but one of these fine days, I hope I'll add to my name a title of honorable member. For now, I'll try and fill the gap as we wait for Mheshimiwa to join us. But our chief guest in absentia, Honorable CPA Kuria Kimani, Chairman of the Finance and the National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, the Executive Director, Zamara Group, Mr. James Orubai. Please allow me also to acknowledge the staff the management and staff of Zamara Group, industry captains present in this forum and in this conference today, trustees of the various pension funds are present here as well. I know we also have opinion shapers within this forum, and all protocols observed. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I was invited and requested to speak on the subject matter on shaping the future of retirement. And I was also asked to limit myself within the space of leveraging on industry insights, data trends, and policy reforms. And I'll try to confine myself in that space. But safe to say that today's theme resonates very well with the future that we are looking at in the retirement benefit space. I hope the slides will come up shortly. But I'm very sure, and I have no doubt, that this theme, which is provoking us on disrupting for impact, is geared to ensure that we have a better space, comfort and dignity in the retirement lives of the Kenyan worker. From the outset, James and the team from Zamara, please allow us to join you as you continue on the journey of powering prosperity. I think the last time I checked, that was a clarion call. And I've no doubt, because what Mahulo has said and what you have spoken to and your theme on powering prosperity are in sync. We have seen growth over the years. In fact, recently, I was learning through your website and noted that now you're in the space of offering financial freedom and empowering financial freedom across Africa and the Middle East. Because I've been in this space for many years, I have no doubt, James, and I'm very happy, and I want to request the group to join you in congratulating Zamara for your contribution. I note Africa is even before Middle East, and therefore for your contribution in this space, James and your team and the team from Zamara, I want to request a group. I know they are your clients, but it will not do any harm for them to acknowledge the impact that you have created from 1994 to the group that we see today. Colleagues, we can just appreciate them with one clap. Thank you very much. Let me turn to what brought me here, and it was safe to say that I would speak to the mandate of the authority. I need somebody to assist me. I don't fail many times on technology, but this one, I think it's testing my... Yes, it has moved, but just have a look at it. Yes, because we have guests from other countries, it's also good to say what we do and what is RBA, the regulator of retirement benefit schemes in Kenya, with a mandate of oversighting an industry now grossing over 2.53 trillion Kenya shillings. But let me just hasten to say that our space is purely to ensure that the hygiene is maintained, and we do offer space for growth in this industry. I'm happy when I speak to these mandates, because the second mandate is to protect the interests of members and sponsors of this people saving for retirement. And the key word is we safeguard the interests of members. The third one is to promote the development, and development is all about growth. And because I'll be speaking about numbers, I was given the permission because the subject matter is leveraging on industry insight, data trends, and policy reform. So my slides are few, but they are heavy in terms of numbers. But I have no doubt in my mind that collectively we have participated in the growth of this industry. More needs to be done. We have a role to advise the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury on the policy to be followed. And colleagues, you are well aware, for the first time, the Republic of Kenya now has a national retirement benefits policy in place from 2024. And maybe I should hasten to add that we have commenced implementation of that policy, and I'll speak to it in my presentation. But as you're aware, also on an annual basis, we do engage, we do reach out to all service providers, all industry players, with a view of improving on the regulatory space. And I'm very happy because this journey, if I use the late Honorable Otieno Kajwang's word, we have done it through consensus. You know, when we had the new constitutional dispensation, the late Kajwang kept on saying there must be consultation and consensus for anything to go through. And I think that is the engagement that we have had over the years. But I have no doubt also that the authority, and we'll give you the opportunity to respond to various questions later in the day, that we have been there towards ensuring that we implement government policy in regard to the space that we operate in the retirement benefits industry. Allow me to turn to the key milestone in the industry, because we can't speak about the future without reflecting on where we have come from. And just thought I should start this journey from where we were in 1997, because the act that we are oversighting, the act that oversees the whole industry, is an act which was enacted in 1997. I'm glad Mahuro and James were in town around that time, and I believe you made a contribution to this space. But come 2000, the Retirement Benefits Authority is established. And James, I will use this podium at the end of my presentation to invite everybody in this room for the 25th anniversary and annual convention on 20th of November next month. Just to reflect on where we have come from and what we need to do, and some of those thoughts will be shared with you today. But in 1997 and the journey of 2000, when we commenced this law, several things did happen. One, and this is a good thing for Kenya because you need to interact with the larger Africa to know how pension funds work. But from where I sit, the segregation of the role of the employer and trustees was a fundamental change that has enabled to see and create impact in the space of retirement savings. The segregation of funds from the employer to a fund established under Section 32 of the Retirement Benefits Act, for me, is one of the pillars of what this industry stands for. When I look at Section 24 of the Retirement Benefits Act, and 23 for that matter, requiring all pension schemes to register, requiring all pension schemes to outsource the business of investment management, requiring them to outsource the business of custody for those who are not in guaranteed funds. This also laid a foundation of transparency and accountability. We walked this journey, and when I look at it, because I remember in the year 2000, we were not regulating administrators, we were not regulating corporate trustees, and other service providers who have come through. But there was also a call, because of the need for transparency, that all pension funds must prepare their financial statements on an annual basis. And all pension funds which were designed on a DB basis were to conduct, and they still conduct, actuarial reviews or evaluations every 3 years. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, that space, the readers who are there, who created and brought all these propositions on this space, they had a foresight, because the journey and the links that we are looking at 25 years down the line, we won't be here if were it not that these safeguards were put in place. In 2010, the government of Kenya realizes that the sustainability of defined benefit schemes in the public sector was no longer viable. And the question of sustainability is a part of the theme that we are discussing in here today. But I'm glad that when I look at it in 2010, the government made a decision that all quasi-government sponsored pension funds should be converted from DB to DC. And trust me, granted, that's not a subject for discussion today, But if you look at the growth of the pension liability and the pension, the implicit liability in the civil service pension scheme created at the cap 189, vis-a-vis where we are with the new scheme and all the DC arrangements, I think we're in a better space to say that the impact of demand of paying pensions on the taxpayer, if we were to draw a curve, the demand is going down. I think it would have been worse if this decision was not taken. When I look at it further, come year 2012 to the year 2018, a couple of changes happened here, but one of them is that we struggled with the business of annuitization. And today I'll also speak about provident funds. In fact, I was looking for the definition of the word provident. It was not very promising. But the point is, we did allow, or we did establish, post-retirement medical fund regulations, or funds for that matter. We did allow for the establishment of income drawdowns that today people can exit from an employer or from their scheme and transfer money to an income drawdown. I do believe, I'm not here to represent Zamara, but I think they have an income drawdown. And other service providers have that. And even schemes are allowed to establish their own income drawdowns. But this space is growing, and we'll come to the numbers later on. But just to try and offer opportunities that we did not have to use the mortality table of the UK and Europe for pricing annuities in the Kenyan market. I note in 2021, then we come to again in the civil service, the commencement of a defined contribution scheme, which we now call PSSSF, Public Service Superannuation Fund, or Public Service Superannuation Scheme, whichever. And that act in 2021, when it commenced, has brought forth civil servants to the contribution space. Every civil servant today contributes 7.5%, and the employer contributes 15%. And my colleague Jackson, whom I should have recognized at the commencement of this presentation, I will recognize him at the end. We'll speak to the subject matter later in the day. But the government of the day, today, limits 15% contributions on timely basis. And if there's a delay, it is not by more than 3 months. Yeah? That fund, which is now 3 years old, has assets grossing over 250 billion Kenya shillings in 3 years' time. 2022, we implemented the National Social Security Fund Act of 2013. The National Social Security Fund today, every Kenyan employee is supposed to contribute 6%, and the employer 6%. There are better returns than they used to be. I think I will use the same figure that James has used. Maybe he has better figures for now, but we know that NSSF fund value is now oscillating around 600 billion Kenya shillings, and I know James said 650. But the truth of the matter is there is growth and there is an outcome in this space. And then finally, last year, and I believe all of us in this room are celebrating in one or the other, because in December 2024, I think precisely on 27th of December, the government offered this space, tax advantages that we have cried for the last 25 years. That today people can make contributions to a pension scheme and be tax exempt up to 30,000 Kenya shillings. That you can put in an extra 15,000 to a post-retirement medical fund. That what you access is tax exempt. And I know there's a debate evolving around that space. And I believe KRA will be here in the afternoon to speak to the subject matter. That even to extend this generosity, even for people who are in gratuities, there is a proposition, and they have been given tax exemption from June this year. I am delighted because all this is within the content of the 18 propositions that are contained in the National Retirement Benefits Policy. If you look at it, and it's available in the RBA website, and I believe most of you may have had an interaction with that. So I thought these milestones are good to speak to in such a forum, because there's been a journey, and I do know, I don't want to go to the granular space, But I can tell you, I think in the year 2000, it was normal to have a scheme in Kenya with a vesting scale of 15 years, that you could not access even your employer's contribution after 15 years of service. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me turn to the industry overview. Remember, I'm leveraging on industry insight, data trends, and policy reforms. For those who don't like numbers, today is not a very good day, but I'll try to simplify the same. The total pension assets as of June this year is now 2.53 trillion Kenya shillings. I feel this number is still high. It should be higher because pension funds do not do valuation of their pension funds, especially on the property portfolio on an annual basis. But this is where we are. And please allow me, when I was looking for the data of Zamara, and that's why I have commended them that they are truly on the journey of powering prosperity. Because out of that number, I would confidently say that the assets under management or assets within the space of administration of Zamara, we can get a number closer to 14–15%. If I speak to Anthony Kilavi, he would like that number to be higher. But the numbers that we have, and 15% of the industry being within the space of this annual conference, I think it's a good thing to commend the Zamara team. When I look at it in terms of membership, total membership, here we struggle a little bit. You know, the labor force in Kenya is 28 million plus, if you look at the national statistics. But the people who have an individual pension account are 7.53 million. If you remove those people that we have compelled to retain money in the scheme because they cannot access everything, then the active membership comes to around 4.3 million Kenyans. That's a true number. And this is inclusive of the National Social Security Fund. And when we speak about coverage in this nation, definitely we have a challenge. And I think we will try and explore what is a value proposition on this space. But once again, I look at the numbers where Zamara is on this. I think the figure works to around 6–7% of the total membership are within the house of Zamara. And therefore, once again, we commend you for your contributions in the space. But the challenge still remains. And look at it. The total pension schemes, the number of employers, sorry, let me just put it this way. The number of pension schemes that we have in Kenya are 1,030. 1030. The number of employers sponsoring these pension schemes are barely 3,300 Jackson, thereabout. Employers who are doing this on a voluntary basis, there is an occupational arrangement either through an umbrella scheme or an occupational arrangement, 3,200. If you go to the database of NSSF and look at the employers who limit contributions to NSSF, the number goes high to 75,000. Those who do it on regular basis come down to around 35,000 together, which is 10% of the people who have occupational arrangements. And if you go to the registrar of business and get the number of companies in Kenya, it doesn't mean that all companies have big employees and employees in the organization, but that number is beyond 400,000. This is, of course, inclusive of small companies that we establish and they are no longer functional. I think the people from where I come from, most of them, when they set up a company, it will be the surname of the gentleman and the lady. So my name is Maina, and the other one is Machira, and my wife is X. So Naita Max. Others call it Beneza. So, but the point is, we have so many employers in this space that are not taking care of their employees in their working life. And that's a challenge, and that's why the coverage rate still remains very low. I believe the NSSF, in my proposition, that the NSSF has the legal mandate to enforce each and every employer in Kenya to make a contribution to a pension fund. And I'll share my views on why NSSF. I know you may have questions about contracting out. Those ones I'll leave to Jackson. But why we need compulsion in Kenya today. It's real and it's urgent, and we need to go into that space. Just to indicate that these numbers also have a contribution to our GDP. 15% of the GDP of the Kenyan economy is purely pension fund assets, if you look at it from nominal terms. And I do not want to speak about the growth, because over the years, we have had growth in this space. And in the last 10 years, if you look at the growth of the pension industry, it has been growing at an approximate, on an average of 17.2%. And the last full year, calendar year, 2023 to 2024, we see growth in the neighborhood of 1.35%. These are real numbers. And I'm double sure I cannot speak about numbers when actuaries are in the house and I have not cross-checked them. So I think we are doing well. And I think we have growth, notwithstanding that we have allowed people to access money every time when they move from one place to the other, or from one employer to the other. Let me turn to just, again, the industry as to where we are, but in a different perspective, just showing the numbers. Our prayer is that this, the data that we are reflecting here is for 10, 11 years. But you can see there's an exponential curve developing. And if you look from 2022 to 2025, the angle is becoming steeper. That is on the graphs which are down here. Forget about what is up there. And I have no doubt with the contributions of NSSF, Public Service Superannuation Fund, and more compulsion for those employers who are excluded in the space of retirement savings, that we will grow these numbers. And we will make the plight of the Kenyan worker dignified if we bring all these people to the basket. The curve up there speaks to the pension to GDP ratio, which has been consistent. And as I just indicated, this currently stands at 15.2%. Ladies and gentlemen, this does not mean that we don't have challenges in this industry. And allow me to share some of those challenges. Perfect. If I could sum it up with these three areas, I think I'll have nailed it. One, the non-remittance of contributions is getting to levels of concern. And we must get to look for legal interventions to cure the sponsors who are misbehaving. And this is largely in the public sector. We have, as of June, and I'm on the middle slide, the level of unlimited contributions as at March was 72.2 billion. It has come down to around 65 billion in June, in Jackson. But 98% of this money is by quasi-government organizations. If you look at it, the county government, if you look at it, the universities, and not the university which is represented by Professor Rudy. I must be very clear. Yeah. But I know contemporaries in space are struggling big time in terms of non-remittance of contributions. But organizations budget for personnel emoluments, but money is not wired to the pension fund. And I know we have trustees of various universities, won't mention because this is not a forum for naming people. But I think it's a call. If you don't remit contributions, and we are in the space of defined contribution schemes, where members' benefits are informed by investment returns, and you deliberately jeopardizing the well-being of your employees. And that is a discourse that we must have before the end of this year. We have the challenges I've spoken to about low pension coverage. Nobody wants to save. We are experts in saving through SACCOs and other avenues. Particularly, it's good to say that it's not that Kenyans don't save. We do. But the savings rate is still low. I think we are around 13% of the GDP in terms of savings. But more importantly, the long-term savings for retirement. For strange reasons, LAD comes before retirement and having income in comfort when you're not economically active. But this is an area that we also need to attack. And I want to believe that we'll have a proposition as to how we need to address this matter, including getting to the space of micro pensions, including compulsion through NSF, amongst others. Then finally, we have what I'm calling concentration risks, because 2.53 trillion Kenya shillings, if you track this money, 92% of this money is within 4 asset classes. I don't know whether we have fund managers in the house, but I know within the Zamara group we have actuaries. But for fund managers, you see, 53% of 2.53 trillion Kenya shillings, which is more than 1.2 trillion, is in government paper. The rest is, if you had actually guaranteed funds, it even becomes worse. It becomes 70% of the whole industry. 1.4, 1.5 trillion Kenya shillings is within government paper. And the worst part of it is actually not even in long-term savings. It's not in the space of long-term bonds. It's in the short-term space. Treasury bills and the papers which are dated for 365 days or the maximum. You know, there is a problem that we seem to be having. We all say pension funds are long-term savings vehicles. But for strange reasons, our fund managers treat it as short-term savings arrangements. I don't know why. And I'm not sure between tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, you'll still be speaking about this space. But I feel there's something that we need to do. And I will make my proposals before I finalize on my presentation today. So we have a concentration risk. God forbid, if there was a default of the Kenya government, simply whatever you have in your account today will come down to a maximum of 20%. You know, as we try to fight the true north. It won't happen, of course. We have strong infrastructures, but that is the reality. That's the risk that we are in. And we have hired fund managers. I have never understood why the fund managers are in Kenya, all the 36 licensees, seem to invest in a correlated manner, because all of them, the portfolios reflect the 92% distribution. I think before we get there, and because I'm speaking to the boards of trustees, when you meet with the fund managers, what do you discuss if it's only rolling over? TBU rates, and a few investment in property, and a few in the quoted equities. What else do you discuss? When you can see, and I'm double sure, this is also the same representation you have in your own pension fund. Are you optimizing returns? And we know the traditional assets, I don't want to go to that space, but we know the returns in the traditional assets have a correlation with the inflation. Are we adding value as trustees? And that's a question I need to put to you. And I hope you'll put it to the experts who will come to speak after me, because I'll not be there. Ladies and gentlemen, turning to our proposals on where we need to go, we have a serious challenge in terms of adequacy of retirement savings from where we sit today. We recently carried out a survey, and the outcome was not very good. If you look at how much people retire with when they exit, the figure is too low. 55% of the retirees in Kenya, if you had that number, earn a pension below 20,000 Kenya shillings. And this is real information. In fact, it can only be improved if you bring in civil servants in this space. Yeah? The income replacement rate in Kenya is 33% of the salary at the point of retirement. And we shall come and discuss why. But trust me, I know as trustees, every day you are processing payments to pay people who are moving from RBA to Zamara, and from Zamara to CAPEX, and from CAPEX to the other service providers who are mentioned here. People should not be allowed to access money when they are in active employment life. But we have a proposal as to how we need to cure this. But that is the main reason as to why we have very low income replacement rate. We've spoken about this in various forums, but I have no doubt that the proposal for enhanced preservation, and I know we engaged last year. When I say last year, I mean last financial year. The government financial year ends on 30th of June, and agreed that we needed to reduce the amount of money that people can access, and we agreed that we will reduce it from 50% to 40% this year. I hope I'm not disappointing those who did not join the forums, because there was public participation and there is evidence, and it was done in broad daylight in the whole of the Republic of Kenya. But the whole idea is to ensure, yes, it is not, the solution is not to say people cannot access. I think we should allow people to access. But if you allow them to access 50% every time they change one position to the other, the outcome is what I've said. Pensions which are not correlated to the salaries that people have been earning, which means the dignified life that you want people to live cannot be achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the proposition and the changes in the tax laws, without repeating them because they will be spoken to other speakers, it's something that we should embrace and actually give back to the government by saying, for bringing forth these advantages that you have given us, we have also locked in this space so that we can also use these resources to develop this nation. You know, I was looking at the NSSF, and I know everybody has an issue about NSSF. Many times I don't know why we always look at NSSF from the negative perspective. I look at NSSF from a positive perspective. Personally, I subscribe that the NSSF Act 2013 is a progressive law. It has room for improvement. But if you take the current rate of contributions in NSSF, and I'm going to use NSSF just for illustration purposes, the contribution rate is 6%, and the employer is 6%, that's 12%. NSSF gives return in the neighborhood of 10%. If you have a different figure, please adduce it for us to, because I believe everybody gets a statement from NSSF. If you don't know how to get it, I think there's somebody speaking to about NSSF this afternoon. Yeah? Yes. They can talk about what has been their returns in the last 3 years. If you take NSSF 12% contribution per month and 10% investment income, and because we work in organizations where we also get salary increment, just at 5%, that gives you, if anybody is in service for 30 years without accessing, because you don't access money, and I've never seen anybody going to, as they are calling trustees, to refer them 50%. Nobody writes to NSSF to say, referred me 50%. Which means already we have defined what needs to be done through the NSSF. It's for the occupational arrangements to comply along those lines. But the point I want to bring forth to you today, and it's a material fact, and numbers do not lie. Anybody contributing to NSSF for 30 years today at the 12% contribution rate for 30 years, because 30 years is the average working life in Kenya, they should go home with a replacement rate of 55% of their salary, if you take that as an example. So already we are at 33%. If we comply with NSSF without joining any other scheme, we are guaranteed 55%. And I think for me that's a good thing. I know my colleagues from Zamara will talk about, or would like us to speak about the opting out space, and I think there's a solution somewhere down the line. But finally, ladies and gentlemen, and that will be my last slide, our view is we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Recently, the South African legal framework was amended to create what they are calling sub-accounts, where we should allow, I don't know who is moving the slides, please just go back. Yeah. The previous one. I realize maybe time is running short. I will try and hurry up. But just to talk about the sub-accounts, because I think the proposition is, why can't we allow people to have a portion that they can access anytime they want? Yeah? We lock in 70% of what you have and allow you to access 30% without asking you any question. If you want to come to Diani or to come to Chanzu and have a beer or just come for praise and worship, you just write to your trustees and tell them, advance me. But we limit that within the 30%. Sorry, for those who are Christian, I don't want to do, when I say praise and worship, it's not that I am downgrading it, please. I'm just giving an example. If you want to pay school fees at the beginning of the year, you know, you can pay for most of us pay school fees on monthly basis. If you can allow people to access and even pay fees on annual basis, you get a withdrawal and you pay, well and good. And I think that's a proposition that we will get into. So that when we talk about locking in, it's not that we're also not offering a solution on the other side of the coin. Let me speak to the tax reforms because the tax reforms have offered us a lot of advantages. Our proposition is that we should ride on this support that the government has given us. As well as ensure that we propel our people through financial literacy. Mheshimiwa, please allow me to recognize you joining us. Karibu sana. But also talk about, as we work towards enhancing the coverage, we also need to ask NSSF to do what is good for us. Get all these people who work in each and every organization and compel them to subscribe to NSSF, to stop relying on what they found in press. I know that's what you want me to say, that the occupational arrangements, the 1030 schemes, is where NSSF is focusing its eyes on when we have more than 300,000, 400,000 employers. Let's not look at 3,200 employers. Let's look at the bigger picture and bring all these people, and I believe we'll do a better place. Of course, from policy propositions, we have proposals to bring in micro pensions. You know, the chief guest is here, so I have to now try to hurry up. But I wanted to say also that we are looking at, from the National Retirement Benefits Policy, with a view of ensuring that the sustainability, we review the investment guidelines. We allow for more diversification. We allow for the space of alternative assets. If you're a trustee and you don't know what is alternative assets, then you should not be in this room, but I'm double sure Zamara is doing a good job. I believe we have gotten to a point where we should be able to offer trustees propositions which are long-term, which will give yields for members to exit with dignified retirement incomes. When I look at I think I've spoken to the issues of fund managers, and I want to condemn fund managers and think they are doing a good job, but we want them to remove themselves from the space of those four asset classes, or the correlated or the hard engagement process. Let me talk to the issues around innovations. I speak to the issues of post-retirement medical funds and the need for adding more vigor and fusion, the need to embrace ICT. And I'm happy that one of the service providers who is leading in this space is Zamara. But I've spoken to the proposal of the sub-accounts. But just to invite you into the space that even when we allowed for schemes to have income drawdowns, what we call IDDs, we didn't have regulations, but we allowed for organized organizations to come forward, make a proposal within a trusted and rules. And now I can speak to a proposition where we have the income drawdowns now hold more than 26 billion Kenya shillings. And they are making the life of retirees who want to use that option a better place as an alternative to annuities. We as an authority are clear that we also need to allow the industry to grow and to innovate, and for that to happen, we'll allow for sandboxes. If you have a proposition, and I'm now speaking to Zamara, if you have a proposition that can be sandboxed before we formulate a law, I think it's high time that the authority allows this to happen. Quickly, ladies and gentlemen, going forward, a few key proposed changes. One, in the space of unlimited contributions, we have amended the law, or we're in the process of amending the law, Treasury and the Attorney General have already drafted the amendments to amend Section 53B of the Retirement Benefits Act so that we can use Kenya Revenue Authority at the instructions of the RBA to collect unlimited contributions. Number 2, Section 39 of the Retirement Benefits Act is being amended to compel sponsors, employers who do not limit contributions, to be found liable and to be punished directly as the CEOs. We have spoken to the issues of trust funds. Amendments have been done. I think we have gotten approvals from the National Treasury. We will be going to Parliament soon for consideration by the Committee on Delegated Legislation. On the preservation of benefits, I think I will reserve that to the head. But also, we are looking at umbrella schemes with a view of tweaking the investment proposition of umbrella funds so that we can have liquidity by ensuring that when umbrella funds invest in illiquid assets, or rather, we limit investments in liquid assets so that we can allow them to only invest in tradable assets only. Ladies and gentlemen, this slide is in the context of our today's theme, disrupting for impact. And what I want to show you is the table on the screen shows where we are in terms of the income drawdowns from 2019. The figure has grown from 6.6 billion to 26 billion. If you take an aggregate of all the annuities which are being paid by insurance companies to our retirees, from the same period, they have grown from 48 billion to 89 billion. So in total, if you look at it, the total amount of pensions paid annually today is from occupational arrangements is 116 billion Kenya shillings. Plus or minus 1 billion for that matter. 116. You know, I will surprise you to tell you that if you look at the civil service pension scheme, the total pensions being paid on annual basis, the figure is 224 billion Kenya shillings. And this is available in the financial estimates of the government. So looking at all this, the question is, how come 1,030 pension funds, the amount of pensions they pay when people retire is 50% or 58% of the civil servants' pensions being paid? The reason is because we access, the reason is because for every place we move, we want to get our money. And I think to make matters worse, we still have provident funds in Kenya. I think our value proposition is that the time to convert all provident funds to be pension schemes is due. It will not be done this year, so we are not asking people to withdraw or to close. But I think on a transition basis, we need to convert provident funds to be pension arrangements, particularly because the tax advantages have been extended to our retirement life. Finally, this is my very last slide. We have spoken to this subject matter. The view of the regulator with a view of ensuring that we reduce this challenge of access. We will be coming to the industry with a proposition of adopting the South African model where we have the two-port proposition. For now, the LAF proposition is actually in sync with what we have in the Hustler Fund. We are not reinventing even from South Africa, even locally. You know, in the Hustler Fund, you have 70% of your savings is long-term and 30% is short-term. You can borrow against. So that is a proposition we need to have. And say, going forward, your 70% remains as long-term and cannot be accessed. Okay? And what you've accumulated today. But whatever you'll continue contribution going forward, you can always access 1/3 at any given point. And there is no need for you to explain whether it is for medical or for whatever reason. But the 70% remains intact. But to give you a boost maybe on year one, we allow you to access 10% of that 70. Are we together? So if you have 10 million, let me use that analogy. We lock in 7 million. The 3 million is what you can borrow. Okay? Going forward. All, the second school says, don't touch the 10 million. You open up an account, whatever you'll accrue from day one, from today going forward. 1/3 is what you can access, but we allow you, for year one, you can access 10% only. And that amount cannot be revisited again. And then you can continue. And you can withdraw that money anytime, as long as there's something in your 1/3. You can always knock the door and say, pay. We together? And I think with that, ladies and gentlemen, if I extend beyond here, I'll be negating why I was invited. Mine is to say thank you very much for the audience. Thank you very much, trustees. I speak to you knowing very well that there are many requests that come from the various boards of trustees. But I know that we have tried as a regulator to honor your requests. I know there are trustees who are sitting here who are supposed to serve for 1 term. Now they are serving 2 terms within the 5 years. I know there are some of your competitors who did not want you to serve 2 terms. They wanted you to serve 1 term. We have relegated the tenure of the terms of trustees to 5 years. We have done many things collaboratively, and I believe we have an obligation as a regulator to be responsive to the needs of this industry. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, please allow me to just ask my colleague Jackson Guthu to be upstanding, because I will leave all the questions to Jackson. Better know whom to ask the questions. I've done my bit on the presentation. Jackson Guthu is the director in charge of supervision at RBA. Thank you, Jackson. I really want to thank you all. I wish I'd have stayed a little bit longer.
The conversation to shape the future of retirement benefits in Kenya will be continuing for 3 days. However, we shall be here to just give you what will be happening, that is including the statistics that have been produced or mentioned in here. As for instance, we've been told that only 26% of Kenyans currently are the ones who are saving in different retirement benefits, and this is quite alarming, where the stakeholders are looking for means to which probably that number would increase. However, we will be here on ground to just give you more and more details. But back to you in studio for now. Thank you.